गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। नमामि गौडपादं च शङ्करं श्रीसुरेश्वरं स्वामिनं सच्चिदानन्दमिन्द्रं तं ज्ञानरूपिणे। ओम ओम नारायण नारायण नारायण। So we were discussing Siddhanti's reply. The Siddhanti's reply was that adhyasa adhyasa requires Atma to be an object of we have changed according to Rama's advice. I have changed, so everything is giving trouble. I think my earlier system was better. Anyway, let me try. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to my old system. See, all this is slipping down, nothing is staying. Just a minute. Is it okay? Can you see me? Okay. I think it's okay. Anyway, at least you hear the sound, that's enough. So all the systems have changed. Okay. So Purvapakshi told that adhyasa requires it should be an object of awareness. So, and then he held a stand that according to him that Atma is asmat pratyaya vishaya, that is an object of I thought, whereas in Vedantin's view Atma in its real nature is an object of no thought. It's not available for any thought at all, because it is a purely subject in which everything is seen, but Atma itself is not available for any thought. But in Vyavahara means in waking state and dream state, from the standpoint of mind, Atma is available, but in a limited way, available to only I thought and no other thought. So this is the difference. That it is available to the I thought is a tentative, and it is only in a Vyavahara, not in its real nature. Atma in its real nature is not available for any thought at all, according to Siddhanti. So while contrasting Purvapakshi's view and Siddhanti's view, Siddhanti is finding fault with Purvapakshi also. Purvapakshi told that Atma is always an object of I thought. Atma is always object, always known through the I thought. Or in other words, what is known through the I thought, that is Atma. This is the thing. What is known through the I thought, that is Atma, as an object of I thought. This is what Purvapakshi said. Siddhanti told, what is known through the I thought is it is a perception of Atma, it's not the real Atma. It is the mind that is trying to know. Mind is entertaining a thought about oneself as I, that knowledge is not the true nature of Atma. The true nature is beyond any thought, and therefore it is beyond the I thought also. Then what is it that we are knowing through I thought? What we are knowing through I thought is not the real nature of Atma. This is according to Siddhanti. Yet in Vyavahara, we tend to use I thought, we tend to refer Atma through I thought. What we know through I thought as an individual is only Vyavaharik perception, but not the real nature of Atma. Okay. So, and then here he finds fault with Purvapakshi. Purvapakshi told Atma is always means in its real nature is available to I thought. Atma is always in its real nature available to I thought. This point Siddhanti finds fault. Say, you are telling Atma is the knower, that is the consciousness knows everything. Again you say Atma is an object of I thought. Is it not a contradiction in you? Atma is the knower, knowing principle. Knower means knowing principle in which all the knowing takes place. It is the basis of all knowing, all thoughts. It is the basis of all thoughts. Itself is not an object. If it is a basis of all thoughts, itself should not be an object of any thought. That should be the fact. But you Purvapakshi say, it is Atma is the knowing principle. At the same time, it is an object of I thought in its real nature. This is what Siddhanti is finding fault with. You can't say it is an object of I thought. Okay, this much we have discussed. And now the next point, next paragraph, last summarizing the Purvapakshi's idea. See here, the topic was like this. Purvapakshi laid a condition that it should become an object of a thought. It should be available for thinking, then only it lends itself to be mistaken. What is beyond thought can neither be mistaken nor can be understood rightly. See, understanding rightly and also committing a mistake or misunderstanding. Understanding, misunderstanding, both are thoughts only. Therefore, if Atma is beyond any thought, neither you can misunderstand it, nor you can correct it, nor you can understand it rightly by correcting the misunderstanding. Okay? That means Atma can be neither misunderstood nor can be understood. So Purvapakshi told, if it is beyond thought, that will be the problem. So if you say that Adhyasa is there, for Adhyasa to be there, Atma requires to be an object of a thought. Without thought, no Adhyasa is possible. That is the Purvapakshi's stand. Now the Siddhanti say, Siddhanti's stand is Adhyasa is there in our Anubhava. There is Adhyasa. Because we have to show him how Adhyasa is there. If Adhyasa is there, then the Vedanta is useful, because by studying Vedanta we correct the Adhyasa and come to understand the Atma. Then only Vedanta has a purpose, then Vedanta study is useful. Otherwise no point in studying Vedanta. All that is waste. That means first we are diagnosing the problem so that the solution can be applied. Solution is Vedantic teaching, Vedanta Vichara. Vedanta Vichara gives rise to a knowledge of Atman. That knowledge will be able to correct the misunderstanding of Atma. Now you have to show how there is a misunderstanding and samsara is due to misunderstanding. See, two things. There is a misunderstanding about Atma and there is a samsara due to that misunderstanding. See, there is samsara, we know. Is this samsara due to a misunderstanding of Atma or due to some other reason? This is the main point. There is a samsara, everybody agrees. The Purvapakshi says there is a samsara. Siddhanti also says there is a samsara. The problem is, then Siddhanti says that samsara is due to a misunderstanding. Adhyasa. Misunderstanding is adhyasa. Therefore, let us do Atma Vichara to correct the misunderstanding. Purvapakshi told, samsara is there, no doubt, but it is not due to misunderstanding, not due to adhyasa. Why? Why it is not due to adhyasa? We are showing it is due to adhyasa alone that you find yourself to be karta, bhokta, pramata. He says, no, that I am a karta, bhokta, pramata, that I am a subject of I thought, that I am an object of I thought is real. It is not due to adhyasa. Aham pratyaya vishaya is not due to adhyasa, it is a reality. It is not due to adhyasa. Because, why? We say clearly, we are showing you that I thought is due to adhyasa. And he says, adhyasa is possible between one object and another object, not between subject and object, which are totally opposite to each other. Since there is an opposition between subject and object, consciousness and an object of consciousness. Okay? Atma, anatma means consciousness and an object of consciousness. Consciousness cannot become object of consciousness. Object of consciousness cannot be consciousness. Okay? This is Atma and Atma. They are totally opposite to each other. So therefore, and subject object being opposite to each other can never be mistaken. Since mistake is not possible, because there is no possibility, the very nature of them is so opposite to each other, so much opposite to each other, that adhyasa is impossible. Therefore, there is no adhyasa. See, Purvapakshi's argument is adhyasa is impossible because the nature of consciousness and the object of consciousness, the object of thought, consciousness and object of thought are opposite to each other. Therefore, adhyasa is not possible. Siddhanti says adhyasa is because you find it in life. Beautiful. Now, what is the argument with which Siddhanti establishes that there is an adhyasa? See, if you can show that there is adhyasa, then you can work for Vedanta Vichara, which produces knowledge and corrects the misunderstanding or adhyasa. On what basis Vedantin shows that adhyasa is possible? Vedantin doesn't show adhyasa is possible. Note this point, I repeat. Purvapakshi says adhyasa is impossible. Vedantin doesn't prove adhyasa is possible because it need not be proven, because it is there in life. Anubhava Siddha is the only reason. We are not giving an argument or something, some factor, some argument, some logic to prove that there is adhyasa. See, adhyasa is not proven by any argument or any pramana. This is most important. This is the difference between Mula Vidyavadins and Swamiji. Mula Vidyavadins try to prove the possibility of adhyasa. For that they give you different reasons. One is there is Mula Vidya. Another is they will try to prove through pramanas. See, two things they adopt. One is that there is a karana for Mula Vidya, therefore adhyasa is possible. What makes adhyasa is possible is one is Mula Vidya. Another is previous samskaras. Again, and then the adhyasa is there because it is a pramana siddha. They try to prove it with pratyaksha, anumana, shruti, pramana, all they try to prove pramana siddha. But you see, one mistake. Mula Vidya itself is non-existent because everything is due to adhyasa alone. Therefore, before adhyasa, nobody can think of anything. So that we have discussed and it will come again and again. So Mula Vidya it doesn't exist at all. Therefore, Mula Vidya cannot be the cause of adhyasa. Second thing, the probability of adhyasa we are not trying to establish through some argument, through some logic. Okay? Not by any proof, any methods of proof. Method of proof is pramana. Pratyaksha, anumana, shruti, arthapatti. No pramana can prove it because all pramanas function within adhyasa. Adhyasam paraskritya sarve pramana prameyaha. Pramana vyavahara, the way all pramanas are used by pramatru. isn't it? It is the pramatru, it is the pramata that uses pramanas. We are talking the pramatrutvam itself is adhyasa. Pramatrutvam itself is a misunderstanding. Then where is the question of pramanas operating there? This topic will come more elaborately later, but here in the context I just touch briefly. Pramata uses pramana only to know the prameya. Okay? Pramata uses pramanas only to know the prameya. Pramanas themselves cannot be proven by pramanas. And pramata cannot be proven by pramanas. When pramata and pramanas cannot be proven by pramanas, then how can you say the pramatrutva adhyasa is due to pramana? So this doesn't work. This doesn't work. That the pramanas can establish adhyasa. No. Adhyasa or a misunderstanding is there in our life. That's all we can say. So it is anubhava siddham. Anubhava itself shows directly that there is adhyasa. You don't need pramana. In fact, since there is adhyasa, therefore pramanas are there. See, since there is adhyasa, therefore maya is there. Maya is there because you are already in adhyasa, you happen to see the maya. You are already in adhyasa, therefore you are a pramata using pramanas. Therefore, within adhyasa, whether you call it maya or pramanas or all these are adhyasam puraskritya. Therefore, adhyasa is there because you find it in anubhava. That's all. Nahi drushte anupapannam nama. This is the word sentence Shankaracharya uses. Nahi drushte anupapannam nama. No question of probability, improbability. Regarding what is a matter of experience. See, drushte, a matter of experience. Anupapannam, question of possibility, impossibility. Nama, nama. Nahi drushte anupapanna. Drushte, regarding what is a matter of experience, there is no question of improbability. That means you don't have to prove. Probability means what? Proving a logic, through logic. You don't need to prove it through logic, and it cannot be proven also, because all logic functions within adhyasa. Assuming adhyasa, logic works. Within adhyasa, logic works. But why? How adhyasa? No logic works there. Logic itself is within adhyasa, but adhyasa is there because you find it in anubhava. This is the difference between Purvapakshi and others. Okay. Purvapakshi is trying to show adhyasa is impossible. Siddhanti simply says, Siddhanti means Shankaracharya and following Shankaracharya Swamiji, Satchidanandendra Swamiji, that adhyasa is there because it is there. It is found. It is found in our anubhava. This is the only argument Shankara uses throughout. But now the Mula Vidyavadins try to say how adhyasa is possible. The possibility through logic, through certain factors, that there is a Mula Vidya, therefore it is possible. Now they go on into other things. These points we partly discussed and more will come later. So Shankara says, Nahi drushte anupapannam nama. Directly is anubhava. Because you find in deep sleep, you are not available for any thought. In waking state and dream, you find yourself to be referring to yourself, thinking of yourself through I thought, and referring to yourself through I thought. So this reference to yourself as an I thought and thinking of yourself through I thought is there in our anubhava. This is what every one of us are. And we don't exist without this. If we don't have I thought, we don't exist in waking and dream at all. In waking and dream, there is only I thought. And this is everybody's experience. And that's what we mean adhyasa. Adhyasa is because it is. Because it is, that's all. Anubhava siddhatvat adhyasa asti. See, most important point. Okay. Now the Purvapakshi's point, that adhyasa requires, next point now. That point is over. Next point, that which we have been discussing for the last few days. Now, let's see, adhyasa requires, it should be an object of thought. Without becoming an object of thought, how can we have a misunderstanding? Because misunderstanding is a thought, isn't it? Misunderstanding is a thought. That means it should be available to a thought. When it is not available to any thinking, not available to any thought, how can there be a misunderstanding? For this there are two levels of answers. In the beginning we told there are two levels of answer. One is assuming the Purvapakshi's condition, this answer is given. Assuming the Purvapakshi, the condition laid by Purvapakshi, that it needs to be an object of thought. It needs to be Vishaya. Therefore he answered, Natavadayamekantena Avishayaha. Atma is not totally non-object of any thought. Atma is not totally out of any thought. It is available to some thought. First answer is, it is available to some thought. Second answer is real answer, later comes. This is a tentative answer. Assuming Purvapakshi's conditions, the conditions laid by Purvapakshi, assuming these conditions, he gives answer that Atma is available to I. Which thought? Some thought it is available. What is that? It is available to I thought. So now the condition which you wanted, that it should be available to I thought, yes, it is available. Because we are referring to Atma through I thought in Vyavahara. Not in its real nature, but in Vyavahara. In Vyavahara, tentatively, it's available to I thought. Now you told it should be available to a thought, then Adhyasa is possible. Yes, that condition is fulfilled, therefore Adhyasa is there. See? That it is available to I thought, then Adhyasa is there. Here one small point, that available to I thought itself is Adhyasa. What else is it? I thought. Atma which is beyond thought, taking it to be an object of I thought, this itself is Adhyasa. What else is? See, Atma is available to I thought, therefore Adhyasa is possible. See, available to I thought, that itself is Adhyasa. What else? So anyway, what Swamiji ultimately concludes in this small paragraph, see, Kaschatra bhavato abhipraya iti vaktavyam. What do you mean to say? Why are you putting such a question, Siddhanti is asking Purvapakshi, you are putting a condition and arguing. What do you mean? What do you want really? Tell me, what do you want? What do you expect the Adhyasa to be? He is telling, what do you expect Adhyasa to be? What is that your condition? Kaschatra bhavato abhipraya iti vaktavyam. It is the last paragraph, 18th point in the book, in the textbook. The last paragraph, 18th point. So kaschatra bhavato abhipraya iti vaktavyam. Adhyaso vishayatvam atmano naiva sahate. You are asking Adhyasa, for Adhyasa to be there, Atma should become an object of some thought. Atma should be available to thought for Adhyasa to be there. But Siddhanti says it is there. Atma is available to I thought, so therefore Adhyasa is. Now he says, now what do you mean to say? That Adhyaso avishayatvam atmano naiva sahate? That means Adhyasa can't stand without Atma becoming an object. Without Atma becoming an object of a thought, Adhyasa can't stand, Adhyasa can't exist. Ahosvit tasya vishayatvam anapadyana sambhavati. Or it must make it an object and then only Adhyasa is possible. It must make it an object. Atma must be made into an object, then only Adhyasa is possible. See? That means Adhyasa cannot stand. Vishayatvam, or it must be made Vishayatvam. What do you mean? That means Adhyasa cannot exist unless you make it into an object. Okay. So therefore to this he says, Yadya Vishayatvam nasahate eva. Now you say, Adhyasa doesn't allow Atma to be a non-object. Adhyasa doesn't tolerate. Now he made two alternatives. Siddhanti made, what do you mean? You mean this or this? He made two alternatives and replying to those two alternatives. First alternative is, Adhyasa doesn't allow Atma to be non-object. That means Adhyasa doesn't tolerate. Yadi avishayatvam nasahate eva. Atma being no object of any thought. See, Atma being a pure consciousness, being an object of no thought, Adhyasa doesn't tolerate it. Adhyasa doesn't tolerate it. For this, he answers Tarhi Prashtavyo Bhavan. Then we are asking a question. Kim Adhyasaha Swakalam Atitya Adhishtana Aropyayoh Swarupam Niyantum Kshamate? This is a good question of Swamiji. Swamiji is thinking, see how beautiful. He says, is Adhyasa going to determine the nature of Adhishtana? Adhyasa is only within the thought. Does Adhyasa go out of the thought and start determining and controlling the nature of the Atma? Atma is beyond thought. Yes, Atma has to be beyond thought and it's not available for any thought. And he says, no, how can it be beyond thought? It must be within the thought. Atma must be within the thought. I say, who is Adhyasa? Who is Adhyasa controlling, dominating, ordering? Ordering Atma to be, you must be within the thought. I don't allow you to be beyond thought. Is Adhyasa going to control the nature of Atma? Atma is Atma, because that's how it is. Nobody has decided. Adhyasa is not going to decide the nature of Atma. Atma is Atma because it is pure consciousness, not available to any thought. What can we do? That's how its nature is. Nobody can do anything. Can Adhyasa control the Atma's nature? That no. How can you be beyond thought? You must be within the thought. So, who is Adhyasa? Adhyasa means a thought. Who is a thought? What is a thought? How can the thought control and dominate and determine the nature of Atma? Atma is beyond thought. That's all. You can't do anything. That's how it is. Therefore, Kim Adhyasaha Swakalamatitya. Adhyasa going out of its nature, going beyond. Adhyasa is within a thought. It remains within a thought. Can it go out of the thought? And what is beyond thought? Atma is beyond thought. Can it go out of the thought and start ordering the Atma? Hey, you can't be beyond thought. You must be within the thought. Therefore, Swakalamatityapi Adhishtana Aropyayoh Swarupam Niyantum Kshamate. It cannot control, it cannot determine the nature of Adhishtana Adhyasta. How an Adhishtana should be, how Adhyasta should be. See, Purvapakshi asking, Atma cannot be mistaken. Adhyasa is not possible because Atma is beyond a thought. That means, let it be beyond thought. Why should Adhyasa have an objection to Atma? Atma is what it is. So, next is, Nacha, okay. First question, you can't say that. You can't determine, you can't order the Atma to be like that. So you have no right to order the Atma. Okay? Atma is what it is. So it is just for sake of argument, this first argument is given, first reply is given, for sake of an argument so that the second point becomes clear. Okay? Just to show the contrast, this argument is taken. Adhyasa cannot order the nature of Atma. Atma is beyond a thought, that's all it is. Nobody can do anything. Thought means nobody can do anything. But if you say that Adhyasa, during the Adhyasa it has to be an object of thought, that we accept it. Noched Adhyasa kale vishayatvam apekshate iti ditiya pakshaha. Now the first argument you can't argue. What Swamiji is telling is, you can't take the first argument, because that first argument is not in your control and nobody's control. Therefore, leave about it. When you are objecting, when Purvapakshi is objecting that Atma cannot be mistaken, no Adhyasa is possible unless Atma becomes an object of a thought. In these things, by expecting this, that Atma should be an object of thought for Adhyasa to be there, I repeat, in order that Adhyasa be there, Atma should become an object, Atma should be an object. This expectation you are having, you expect this. By this expectation, what are you expecting? Do you want to change the Atma, its nature, and become an object, which it is not? How can you expect the Atma to be different from what it is? How can you expect Atma? Atma is what it is. It is beyond thought and it is beyond thought and nobody can expect it, nobody can order it. How can you expect Atma to be different from what it is? And then Adhyasa has no power that it can drag the Atma and make it an object. Therefore, you can't expect that. But you can only say this much, that during Adhyasa it should become an object. Yes, that much we accept it. At least, okay, regarding the real nature of Atma, we have no control. Real nature of Atma, which is beyond any thought, it is a pure consciousness, pure subject alone. Over this, we have no control, nobody has any control. Therefore, we live about it. But this much we can say, at least during Adhyasa, Atma should be available for an objectification. During Adhyasa, it should be available to thought. Yes, that much is, we admit. That much we accept it. That condition we accept it, and that condition is fulfilled. What is it? During Adhyasa, Atma is available for thought. See, you need Atma to be available for thought only for sake of Adhyasa, or that you want the Atma's nature to be like that. See, two things. Do you want Atma's very nature to be object of thought, or for sake of Adhyasa, if it is object, it is enough? Two things are there. Do you want Atma's nature alone, Atma's original nature, real nature must be an object of thought, then only Adhyasa possible? Or during the Adhyasa, if Atma is available for thought, that is enough. What its real nature is, we don't question. Whatever it might be, we don't know. We don't know and we don't question. Atma's nature may be whatever it may be, but at least during Adhyasa, it should be available for objectification. Yes, this much we understand. I think I have clarified. I have not confused you much. During Adhyasa, it should be available for object. It should be available as an object. So we don't insist that its real nature must be an object. That's the difference. Purvapakshi says that its real nature is an object. In its real nature, original nature, Atma is available for I thought. Then only Adhyasa is possible. It must be available. Siddhanti says Atma in its real nature is not available. It is beyond thought. But during but how can Adhyasa be possible? Therefore Adhyasa is not there. We say Adhyasa is possible. Why possible? Because it is there. But so when Adhyasa is there, during Adhyasa, then it must be, but it is not an object. Yes, during Adhyasa it becomes an object. Not in its real nature, but sake of Adhyasa purpose alone it becomes. What is Adhyasa? Misunderstanding. Or in other words, the very becoming an object of a thought itself is Adhyasa. Okay? What is beyond thought appears as if it is an object of thought. This itself is Adhyasa. See, in fact, the real answer is this alone. Is trying to accept Purvapakshi's condition and answering. Therefore, it is like this. Otherwise, this itself is Adhyasa. Atma in its real nature is beyond thought. That we leave it. But for the Adhyasa to be there, it should be available for thought. Yes, it is available. That's what it is. You think Atma as I. You refer yourself as an I. That you refer to yourself through I thought, and use the word you think of through I thought, refer through the I thought, and behave as if you are an I, as an individual. I as a subject. As if you behave that as if you are a subject of the world. As if you are a subject of the world, and you refer that way, and you think of yourself that way. Now this thinking is available. Therefore, this thinking is available. This Atma becomes an object only during Adhyasa, not in its real nature. In its real nature, Atma is not an object. But during Adhyasa, it appears. That means, during Adhyasa, in misunderstanding alone, Atma appears as an object. In fact, Atma appearing an object itself is an Adhyasa. Itself is a misunderstanding. Okay. Therefore, Nacha, because it's a very delicate point, very subtle point, you have to answer this way. Swamiji brought out excellent way of explaining such a difficult point, how he brought out. Nochet adhyasa kale vishayatvam apekshate iti. You don't find all this in Shankara's Bhasha. Shankara is very brief. Swamiji, by his own thinking, he brought out all this clarity. Nochet adhyasa kale vishayatvam apekshate. You can only say this much. What Atma is, we leave. But at least during Adhyasa, it should be during misunderstanding. From the standpoint of misunderstanding, it should be available as an object. Yes, it is available. That condition you lay, we accept it. That's available. During the Adhyasa, it's available for objectification. In other words, the very objectification is Adhyasa. What is not available as an object, taking it as an object of thought itself is Adhyasa. Note this point. What is not available to objectification, feeling as if it is an objectified is Adhyasa. What is beyond thought, taking it to be an object of thought itself is Adhyasa. And when you are taking it as an object, the objective is there already. When you have taken it as an object, that much is there. You have taken. You have taken as an object and it is there. It is there as long as you take it as an object. Okay? It is there, you take it as an object, and therefore that is Adhyasa. Okay. So, nochet adhyasa kale vishayatvam apekshate iti dvitiya pakshaha eva ashrayaniyaha. You should know good Sanskrit also to be able to understand that Sanskrit expression is also beautiful. Tattu vidyate eva pratyagatmanopi natavad ekantena ayam avishayah. This is one sentence of Shankaracharya. Natavad ayam ekantena avishayah. Atma is not totally non-object. Atma is absolutely, Atma is not absolutely beyond thought. It is not uniformly, it is not totally, it is not singularly. I don't know how to express it. Anyways, ekantena is a beautiful expression in Sanskrit. Ekantena. I don't know how to translate, so I am trying to do as best as I can. Singularly, Atma is not singularly beyond thought. Singularly unavailable for any thought. Uniformly, totally, absolutely not available, absolutely unavailable for any thought. It is available. So, how it is available to I thought? Not in its real nature, again not. It's available to I thought when it is available to I thought. That is during Adhyasa. During Adhyasa alone it is available to I thought, not in its real nature. Therefore, that you refer to Atma as an I only due to misunderstanding, only within the misunderstanding. That means you have a misunderstanding only during misunderstanding. See, this is the expression. You have a misunderstanding only when you have a misunderstanding. In itself it is not there. See? You are a fool only when you are a fool. Otherwise you are not. Isn't it? You have a misunderstanding only during the state of misunderstanding. In itself, Atma in itself, there is no misunderstanding. Atma itself has no misunderstanding. The misunderstanding is there only from the standpoint of misunderstanding. In real nature, it is not there. This is the way, this is the most difficult point how he presents. Most difficult point, he is excellently presenting it. Pratyagatmano vishayatvam apadyaivahi adhyasaha. That is the thing. Therefore, Adhyasa requires Atma to be an object. Object of some object. Object of I thought, you thought, some of thought. But Atma is available to object, available to I thought. During Adhyasa, Adhyasa is only objectification through I thought. Therefore, taking it to be an object of I thought itself is Adhyasa. And that object it has become, for the purpose of Adhyasa alone, it become an object. For the purpose of Adhyasa alone, it has become an object, not in its real nature. In its real nature, it is beyond object. Beyond objecthood. Okay? Therefore, Pratyagatmanaha Vishayatvam apadyaiva adhyasaha. Pratyagatma, the inner Atman, the pure consciousness. Inner Atma means Sakshi. The witnessing consciousness appears to be an object of I thought during Adhyasa. Therefore, Adhyasa requires Atma to be an object. Yes, it is an object. Only during Adhyasa for the purpose of Adhyasa. Neither without Adhyasa nor when there is no Adhyasa. In its real nature, Atma is not an object of Adhyasa. Only during Adhyasa, just for the purpose of Adhyasa, it is an object. In fact, being an object itself is Adhyasa, in other words. Okay? Therefore, ato nasti kaschid virodha. This is the first reply. Ika second reply. Atmano vishayatvam svabhavatah. Atmano vishayitvam svabhavatah vishayatvam to adhyasat. Therefore, Atma in its origin, this point I have already stated, but anyway, Swamiji is telling now, I have already stated this. So, Atma in its real nature is Pratyagatma, witness alone. Witness means what? It's available to neither you thought nor I thought, no person. Neither first person nor second person nor third person. Atma is available to no person. It is just a consciousness without being any person. Bah, how beautiful it is. Without being any first person, second person, third person, Atma is just consciousness. All persons are appearing in Atma, Atma who himself is free from any person. Himself is neither person, neither first person nor second person nor third person. It just is a self-shining consciousness. Atraha kastarhi pratyagatma anatmanor bhedaha yena anatmaiva vishayaha uchyate atma tu vishayi iti. Then what is the difference? Next paragraph, 19th point. 19th point, he says, what is the difference between the Atma and an object of thought? Atma, which is not an object of thought, and also Anatma, which is an object of thought. See, object of thought is Anatma, or Anatma is an object of a thought. Atma is no object of a thought. It's not available for any thought, therefore it is a beyond thought. Not being available for any thought is Atma Vishaye. Available to thought is Vishaya. Because English is a difficult language. Sanskrit is so easy, Vishaya, I instantly understand. So in English I have to struggle hard with my little English. Oh, I'm not good at English because I have not studied in English medium anyway. I learnt with a great hardest work, I learnt little English. Okay, so kastarhi pratyagatmanatmanor bhedaha is asking pratyagatma, the inner Atma. Inner is only a way of telling, it's not inner. Atma is Atma. Atma is Atma. Inner means don't look outside, don't look through thought, that's what it means. See, here it is only a negative term. Inner word is only a negative term, it's not a positively indicative term, positively denoting term. Inner means what? You are not seeing it as an object of a thought. So you are not trying to see through a thought. If you see through a thought, it is outer. What is outer? If you are seeing the Atma through a thought, it becomes an outer Atma. So it is inner because it's available for no thought. But it is there self-shining. Nobody can deny its existence, but not available to any thought. It's a very peculiar thing, see. Nobody can deny your own existence, but you cannot objectify yourself through any thought. At the same time, you can't deny your existence because it is self-existing. Self-existing on its own without any thought. Therefore, Pratyagatma, inner Atma, Pratyagatma is Sakshi, Sakshi is Pratyagatma, is another name for Sakshi, witness. Therefore, Pratyagatma Anatmanor Bhedaha. Then what is the difference between Pratyagatma and Anatma? Is asking, Vidyarthi, the student is asking this question. Then how am I to understand the difference between Pratyagatma Sakshi and also Anatma? Yena, what is the difference? Tell me. On account of which, based on that, we can see Atma alone is Vishayi and Anatma is Vishaya. Vishaya is object. Anatma is an object of a thought. Atma is Vishayi alone. Vishayi means only knowing principle, not an object of any thought. Okay? What is the difference between Atma and Anatma? Uchyate. Now, this question is answered. Pratyagatma tavat svabhavatah vishayi. This question comes because, see the question. If Atma is always consciousness only, then during Adhyasa it becomes an object of thought. That means during adhyasa it becomes anatma. Then tell me what is atma anatma. If atma becomes an object of thought during adhyasa, itself atma in its real nature is an object of no thought. That means atma is a subject, atma is a vishayi, and atma is also anatma. Then atma is also anatma, atma is also atma. What is this? Atma is atma, atma is anatma. Anatma means an object. Atma is the object, atma is beyond object. Now you are telling the same atma is two. Tell me the difference now. He says, tell me the difference between two. Is it subject or object? Is it a thought? Is it an object of thought? Or it is no object of thought? He says there is a difference. To make you, help you to understand clearly, pratyagatma tavat swabhavato vishayi. Pratyagatma by its real nature, in its original nature, always vishayi. It is pure consciousness alone, never available to any thought. Chidatmakatvat, because its nature is consciousness. But on the contrary, what is anatma? There is no such thing called anatma. Okay? Vishayatvam chu tasya adhyasikam. Atma appearing as an object of some thought, particularly I thought alone. Atma appearing as an I thought becomes an object of a thought. That is anatma. Same atma is, when it is an object of a thought, it is anatma. When it is beyond thought, atma. See, atma and anatma, they are not two things. How beautiful it is. Ultimately, it means that atma and anatma are not two things. Atma, when it is beyond thought, the same thing you think through your thought, it is anatma. When it is beyond thought, it is atma. Okay. When it is not available to any thought, it is atma. Same thing you think through your thought, it is anatma. Atma, anatma, it is a vishayi and vishaya. They are not two, they are only two ways of looking. One is its original nature, another is wrongly thinking. That's all. Its wrong perception is anatma, its real nature is atma, its wrongly perception is anatma. Now you got the point. Anatma itself is not a second thing. Atma, anatma, there are not two things. See, atma, anatma is not two things. It is like me and my photo, there are no two people. I am here and my reflection is here. I am two people. One is me, another is myself seen as me. There is no second one. One is me, another is same me seen differently, that's all. Therefore, anatma is only a way of seeing the same atma. Atma is existing atma. Anatma is same atma seen in a particular way, perceived in a particular way. Note this, anatma is not an entity standing as a separate, standing as a parallel to atma. Anatma is not a separate parallel to atma. It is not an another existence. It is not an another entity equal to atma. Okay? Atma is swatasiddha. All existence is one atma, one non-dual pure consciousness. What is anatma? Anatma is the same atma perceived. But it is not available for perception. Yes, it is not available for perception. It is not available to perception, yet you think as if it is available. That itself is a mistake. That's why we call it a mistake. It is a mistakenly perceived. It is a mistake. That's why it is not really there. The anatma is not really there. Atma taken to be an object, atma itself is not an object, but taken to be an object is not true. That's why we say it is a mistake. It is a mistakenly taken to be an object which is not there. In itself is subject alone, not available for any objectification. Okay. Therefore, atma is in its real existence. Atma is what it really is. Anatma is same atma taken wrongly as if is an object. When you take it wrongly, then you are using a thought. Through thought you are objectifying. But it's not available. When it is not available, when you think of it, what happened? Then there is only a thought. It is only a wrong thinking. That wrong thinking alone is anatma. Wrong thinking alone is vishaya. Otherwise there is no such thing called anatma. There is only one atma. Atma is one. Anatma is its wrong perception about it is anatma. Okay, Vishayatvam च तस्य आध्यासिकम् अध्यास समकाल निर्वर्त्यम् अध्यास निर्वाहार्थम्. Beautiful. Therefore, anatma, that is being an object. Atma by its nature is no object, but appearing to be object is due to adhyasa. During adhyasa, due to adhyasa, for the purpose of adhyasa. That it appears to be an object just for the purpose of adhyasa. In itself it is not. Itself Atma is not. I think this itself Swamiji told just by studying the Adhyasa Bhashya, Swamiji's Vyakhyanam, whole Vedanta is completed. Entire Vedanta, you understand the Atma and all Adhyasa is removed. Oh, you don't have to study other books at all. This one book is enough for you to understand the truth. It completely clears everything because he makes it very clear. Okay, the time is up. Anatma punar yushmat pratyaya vishayeva svabhavataha. Okay, but what is anatma? Anatma is always an object of thought alone. Anatma is object of you thought. Okay, Atma, two things. Regarding Atma, you have to learn two things. Atma in its real nature, not available to any thought. But available to I thought is only due to adhyasa, for the purpose of adhyasa, and it is a purely due to misunderstanding. That it is available to I thought is only due to misunderstanding, for the purpose of misunderstanding, not in its real nature. Okay, this is Atma. Now coming to the Anatma. Anatma is always available to you thought. Okay, Atma by its real nature, in its real nature always available to you thought. So Anatma punar yushmat pratyaya vishaya eva svabhavataha. In its real nature available to you thought. Nacha adhyasa kale kvachit adhyapi vishayatvena pratibhasate. And even during adhyasa it remains object of you thought. It remains an object of you thought. And during adhyasa also it remains the you thought. It is always available to you thought in its real nature, because it doesn't become subject at all. Okay, sacha adhyasa kale kvachit yadyapi vishayitvena pratibhasate tatapi nat sarupam tasya. During adhyasa you take body to be subject. Okay, body is actually you thought, object of you thought. Sense organs are object of you thought. Mind is an object of you thought. Okay, mind is a yushmat pratyaya vishaya, body is yushmat pratyaya vishaya, indriyas are yushmat pratyaya vishaya. Yet during misunderstanding I take body to be the subject side, body to be the subject side, and say body is Atma. I take indriyas on the subject side. Take means adhyaropa. You impose on the Atma and say that indriyas are the subject, indriyas are the Atma. Then you say that the mind is the Atma. Then the aham thought is Atma, I thought is the Atma. Okay, so during the adhyasa we take anatma to be Atma, but we know it is not really, because it is available to you thought, body is available to you thought, sense organs are, mind is, therefore it is available to thought, it is available to thought, therefore body is available to you thought. In fact, body is not actually available to you thought. Tentatively it is only available to I thought alone. It is available to you thought, no, only other world is available to you thought. In fact, body, mind and sense organs are available to I thought only, it is object of I thought. But you take out of that object of I thought, then body cannot be seen at all. Therefore calling it yushmat pratyaya, calling it as an object of you thought is only about the external world, not about the body and mind sense organs. Okay, क्वचिदपि विषयित्वेन प्रतिभासते तथापि न सत्वरूपं तस्य न हि तदापि तस्य विषयस्वरूपं हीयते तथा आत्मनो विषयित्वरूपम्. Okay, even if the external world we take to be me, yet Atma remains an object of you thought alone. Anatma remains object of you thought alone all the time. Okay, this point we will discuss in the next class again. Kincha yadapyatma vishayatvam apadyate adhyasa nirvahartam tadapi asmat pratyaya gochara eva bhavati. I think little more, it is a tricky one. Now it is not enough, time is not enough, I have to explain little more. The last I think 3 sentences, 3-4 sentences are of this paragraph. 19th paragraph, 19th point, we will discuss in the next class. It becomes clear to you. Don't worry. What we have understood, you will keep it, and what is still not clear, we will discuss in the next class. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat.